Hello there everybody and welcome to a new video for Age of Wonders 4. In this one, I'm going to go through the best combinations between cultures and society traits. There's a lot of synergy between each and every culture and the traits available, and again, I did my best to analyze all the synergies that are available and give you a thorough overview so you can build your factions according to your own playstyle, fantasies, and ideas. So we're going to get started with the feudals, and first off, the order things are really pretty good for them, but not the best things to choose. It is okay. The Chosen Uniters is pretty cool because the bonuses on shield and polearm units totally go into your roster. Bonus from vassals is pretty good because you have easy access to some extra whispering stones via the order affinity, but that's pretty much the end of the roster. Devotees of Good, well, if you are aiming for a expansionistic victory, it is pretty okay to get the extra Imperium, but the city stability bonus is not that amazing for you. Here again, the level ups go pretty synergistic, but I personally see much stronger picks for the feudals in general, and Imperialists is personally for me a trait only for tall builders, and therefore not so much for the feudals. Chaos is another thing where I say not the highest synergy. Neither the Ritual Cannibals nor the Ruthless Raiders go too well if you choose any of the order perks, and the Prolific Swarmers was the only thing where I felt like, yeah, that's pretty synergistic, because you expand faster, you get more oomph into your tier 1 units, and you gain lower upkeeps. That's a pretty good one, but the other two, I didn't see the big synergy there. Arcane is a pretty similar venue. There is no perk that strongly synergizes into a natural power of the feudals, so I didn't find any of them which I said, yeah, you should totally go for that. You can build them into any playstyle for sure if you want to go for some astral affinity, but there is no, I didn't see any native synergy. If I missed some, let me know. Nature though, well, nature and feudals, they just go so well together. Adept Settlers is just amazing for any expansionistic faction. Experienced Seafarers is, on the first glance, not that cool, but the fishery bonuses make any city that is close to the water pretty powerful. And, well, Fabled Hunters, I didn't see that one as a big bonus, but Adept Settlers and Seafarers can be pretty cool. Seafarers are more of an optional thing if you have a water-heavy map. These can be really, really good and should be taken in favor of the Adept Settlers if you're, for example, playing on an islands map or something like that. But both of these traits go pretty well with these guys. Materium, oh yeah, I like Materium. You know, Runesmiths is just an amazing trait because it lets you power up your swarmers even cheaper and even directer and better. I really like this trait. Although I gotta say, the great builders aren't that amazing because, you know, you're not going for too many quarries with the feudals per se. And the Wonder Architects, oh well, I personally see this more of an amazing trait for tall builders again, but the Runesmiths, they are really, really good. Especially since you aim for large swarms of units, the cost decrease here is really good. Really, really good. And again, shield and polearm units are in your roster. So Shadow on the last spot was a surprise for me, because powerful evokers is actually much better than it looks at the first glance, because you might be lacking battle mage units, but the feudals, they go a lot around their bannermen, which are supporters, and they allow you to do more combat casting. It's a pretty interesting venue to go to, and since you spam out a lot of bannermen, this is much better than it looks at the first glance. The same is true for the Scions of Evil. This is actually pretty good. You have shock units, you have shield units, so you can utilize that, and Draft and Imperium are two things that you won't say no to if you are playing a expansionistic victory. Also not too bad. So the Shadow Walkers, I didn't see any direct synergy there. I just want to point out that a Shadow Affinity is insofar interesting as it is also very good into a Diplomacy playstyle, because you get an extra Whispering Stone there, and you can totally brutalize other people's vassals. So Surprisingly enough, Shadow and Order would be a pretty strong combo when you go for Free Cities and Diplomacy, for example. I was quite surprised to see those nice synergies on Shadow, especially Powerful Evokers was something that I didn't expect to be that much of an interesting choice, because more combat casting points means that you can go for more magical influence. If you have a build that's utilizing magic strong, that's a pretty good choice. Now then, let's get on over to the High Culture. The High Culture is, well, very synergistic with Order. We're not too surprised about that, I suppose, because they are the native Order faction. They are really good with the Devotees of Good, because, simply said, this is extremely powerful for tall builds. Extra stability is really, really nice. The Chosen Uniters are really good for any diplomatic victory because of the extra Whispering Stone, and Imperialists is also a pretty amazing trait if you want to build tall with a low amount of cities. I didn't see too much synergy at all with the high cultures and chaos. I mean, technically, if you'd be out for a domination victory, these traits all go pretty well. But like I said already with the feudals, they don't combine pretty well. You either are good or chaos, basically, or order or chaos. There's a lot of mutually exclusive stuff there, which makes builds pretty difficult, and they don't synergize well with prolific swarmers either. Now then, Arcane though. Arcane has a lot more interesting venues there because the high cultures can utilize magic pretty decently. Mana Channelers is only good if you're aiming for summons, but then it is pretty amazing. And Gifted Casters is pretty good if you want to go for a directly spellcasting approach, but none of these three are directly very, very good for the high culture, except if you're aiming for a magic victory. If so, Ancient Wise Ones is really, really cool, and Gifted Casters as well, because if we're going for a magical victory, we're going to have a lot of spells to utilize. So it really depends on your strategy in this regard. Nature, well, nature is always useful, and that's something that's especially true for the high culture. I don't see the big synergy to adept settlers. Experienced seafarers makes you less depending on a good start on the map, because this way your tall builds can utilize sea fields pretty decently. And Fabled Hunters, well, nah, not really a good thing. Fabled Hunters is, in my opinion, a little bit of an underpowered feat that could use some soup up. I don't know if I'm wrong about that, but I'm not too impressed by it in general. Materium though, oh yeah, Materium is amazing. We love great builders, we love runesmiths, and even the Wonder Architects go pretty well. So if you're going for a tall victory, Wonder Architects is really good, and runesmiths is, well, any magic strategy profits from that, because it frees up your mana costs for other wonderful things, and therefore it's a pretty good pick. And high cultures also go really, really good with Shadow. Powerful evokers, here you have the battle mages and the supporters. Scions of Evil is also pretty good, because a pure evil run on the high culture is pretty cool. You have permanently awakened units, and this makes you go stronger in that direction. The only downside is you don't feature any shock units, but, well, such is life. The Shadow Walkers are not too synergistic, but powerful evokers and Scions of Evil go really, really cool for the high cultures as well, if you are aiming to go for either a more magical approach or an evil approach. Okay, let's go on over to the Barbarians. The Barbarian faction is, as it goes, pretty obvious, not really well with the order traits. None of these go really well. I thought like the Chosen Uniters would be pretty much the best of them, but you need to opt out a lot of good other traits that you really would like to have, so I didn't see that much of a big benefit there. Devotees of Good and Imperialists, well, I've been talking about these already a lot in the video, so nothing really interesting here. Chaos, though, well, as a barbarian, you could pick all three of these. And you would actually like to pick all three of these, because your expansionistic playstyle profits from both Ritual Cannibals and Ruthless Raiders. You know, earning resources for killing stuff is always amazing for a faction like this one, and Prolific Swarmers is also really, really good because you have one hell of a tier 1 roster, and making your General troops cheaper is a really, really good trade. Faster growing cities goes without saying. So Arcane is something I actually did like a lot for the barbarians. I was surprised about how well I saw them compatible with that, because Ancient Wise Ones is really good to have extra magic to back up your Alpha Strike, because it keeps you ahead of the competition every single tome, although it's random though. It's a little bit problematic. Gifted Casters though gives you more flexibility, and also it frees up your mana pool because you can cast more. It's pretty good. And combat casting is really cool for the barbarians because it gives you that strategic advantage to utilize your blitz tactics even better. And mana channelers enables you to summon way more units to back up your swarms. Either strategy, whether you want to follow one of these strategies, it's always going to be pretty good fit. I was surprised about it, but the barbarians actually go pretty well with the astral stuff. I didn't think, but it's actually better than I thought. Nature, then again, well, the barbarians would again like to take all 3 chaos traits and all 3 nature traits all at once, please. Thank you. Adept Settlers is amazing. Experienced Seafarers is also really good because it upgrades those cities at the sea. And since you are one heck of a expansionistic operation, it is pretty cool if you have a water-heavy map. Really, really amazing. And Fabled Hunters is really cool because the barbarians are the only faction that can fully utilize this thing by having a ranged unit and a skirmishing unit. So I really think these guys are the perfect match for this one. Pretty much the only one that I found, but that's another story. So the barbarians, well, I did like the runesmith path. The other 2 ones, well, the Wonder Architects, you could utilize them, because as an expansionist you get the ability to grab a lot of ancient wonders, but I didn't see Great Builders as that one of an amazing trade. But runesmiths, again, it upgrades your swarmers, and it lowers the costs to upgrade lots of units, so pretty good stuff. The Shadow Affinity, I need to talk about Shadow Walkers up front, because, it gives you universal camouflage for your scouts, and since the Barbarian faction has pretty much the strongest scouts out there, it is such a good fit. Such an amazing good fit. Scions of Evil doesn't go too bad either, because it gives you much needed extra draft power. Imperium income is also really amazing when you're expansionistic. And, well, you got shock units, you got shield units, everything on this trade is really good for barbarians, as a matter of fact. And powerful evokers, well, not so much. If you go for a magical path, though, you could actually go for powerful evokers and utilize the hell out of your shamans, but I see that as not too much of a strong strategy. Now, Industrious folks. The Industrious folks, they go really well with Order because, tall builders always synergize well with these traits. Every one of them can be utilized really, really good in this faction. I personally see a big benefit in the Chosen Uniters because of the diplomatic focus, but you can utilize either of them. Chaos, well, if you want to go for a domination victory, it's actually really good for them, but if you want to go for a tall victory, it's not. It really depends on your playstyle, but I saw a lot of potential in Ritual Cannibals and Ruthless Raiders if you want to set out and practically slay everybody. This gives you a much needed backup on resources, but no, I didn't see that big, massive synergy on the Industrious and Chaos. Astral goes the same. You are not that deep into spellcasting, and none of these have a deep bond to this faction. Nature is also... I didn't see them to be that well in the nature fit, unless you are out for a domination expansionistic victory. Then Adept Settlers is again pretty amazing. Adept Settlers, I must say, is a trait that goes well for almost any strategy though, because, an extra city and faster cities is always good. But the other 2 traits are, well, I didn't see them too much of a good fit. Materium though, the Industrious being the Materium faction, yeah, well, you can pick either of these and they are really, really good. Wonder Architects is only if you have pretty much the ability to claim wonders, good thing. But the other things, well, Great Builders, you you focus on quarries per se in your culture, and runesmiths, that gives you the ability to bolster up your defenses more into offenses. Really, really good stuff. Shadow, I didn't see any good fit with shadow traits too much. Scions of Evil doesn't have too much of a big appeal. Shadow Walkers and Powerful Evokers also not too much, because you're not too deep into magical paths with the Industrious folks. You fare much better with the bonuses from Materium, Order, or stuff like that. The Dark Culture is totally unfit for Order. I didn't find any trait that was too appealing for the Dark Culture in there, especially since you're locking yourself out from other traits that are amazing. The Dark Culture does synergize really well with Chaos, especially Ritual Cannibals. You have a natural lack of supporters and healing, and that Corpse Eating trait gives you access to temporary HP without really costing you any action points. Pretty good stuff. Also, Ruthless Raiders comes in super handy if you are after a domination victory anyways. You don't play too nice with Astral, because none of these traits do really too much for you. Unless you want to go for summonings, then Mana Channelers would be a pretty good trait. But none of these were like, yeah, Dark Culture totally adapts into that well. Same went for Nature. Adept Settlers, well, you could pick it, but Dark Cultures, I personally see them so good for domination or tall victories, so not really that interesting. Fabled Hunters could be a pretty interesting pick, but other traits are so much more fascinating, so not that much of a big friend here. Materium, though, well, Materium is everywhere good, but Great Builders has a really good synergy for the Darks, because their racial province upgrade synergizes with quarries or mines. So you could go for plenty of quarries and get a lot of gold, which is for every domination victory really good, because you need that money for your troops. I personally think Runesmiths is a trait for everybody. Everybody can utilize it well. Basically, if you like unit enchantments, it's a pretty powerful thing. You should only pick it, though, if you want to go deep into unit enchantments. And, well, no, I didn't see any big synergy with Wonder Architects. Shadow, well, what can I say? Shadow and the Dark Culture, they go really well together. You have Battle Mages, and therefore you can utilize this here quite well, especially since your Battle Mages are pretty much one of your bread and butter units. It's okay to have powerful evokers even though you have no supporters. Scions of Evil, well, what could I say? You have shock units, you have shield units. You can totally go for this one as well. Sorry, you don't have shield units. I slipped, but the extra power there is there, and it is pretty good. But surprisingly and amusingly enough, I didn't see that big synergy with Shadow on the Dark Culture. I saw way more synergy in Materium and Chaos, and even in some aspects of Astral and Nature, depending on your playstyle. But Shadow was, you already have stealthy scouts. You don't need that too much. The bonuses from Scions of Evil are a little bit underwhelming, in all honesty. It's okay, but not too much of a big thing. Powerful evokers here again, you use only 50% of the whole thing, but in a nutshell, it's pretty okay. So let's get on over to the last faction, the Mystics. The Mystics play extremely nice with Order, in my opinion, because you are, well, the best faction to go for a magical victory, and therefore a tall build always benefits from Order perks. Pick them to your liking. Whether you want to be more expansionistic, then Chosen Uniters can be really good. If you want to be isolationist, Imperialists is really good. Devotees of Good is always nice if you are aiming for a pure alignment. Either way, it's pretty decent. But the Chaos I didn't see too decent here, because again, tall play styles don't go too well with that. And if you go well with Order, usually you don't want to opt yourself out from these cool perks, so we can pretty much pass these. Astral, though, well, you're the Mystic faction, so Astral plays well with you. Mana Channelers is good because you're really good at summoning stuff. Gifted Casters is really cool because you are the faction that's so good at spellcasting in general. And Ancient Wise Ones is giving you even more of an edge in terms of spellcasting, and it enhances your already powerful magic gameplay. So basically every one of these traits is amazing for the Mystics, but that isn't too much of a big surprise. Nature is something I didn't feel too confident towards too. They are also the only faction that's not allowed to pick Fabled Hunters because they neither have a ranged nor a skirmisher unit, so they cannot take that one. I was quite amused and surprised about that, although I feel they are quite discriminated there, but such is life. Materium is a really cool stuff, but like as usual, it's always one where I feel like there's something in it for everybody. Runesmiths is amazing for a magic for a magic versed culture. Wonder architects can be also really cool if you go for that tall playstyle and you want to have those really good cities. You can build them between ancient wonders and you get a lot of a bonus there. Shadow is really amazing for the mystics because powerful evokers, they are one of the cultures that can utilize this trait 100%, and they really go well with it. A thing like powerful evokers and gifted casters is really cool because it gets the most out of your combat casting ability. But also Scions of Evil I felt like was pretty interesting in so far as the extra draft and Imperium points never go to bad if you want to go for an evil alignment. You get some bonus there, but it's not much of a amazing pick. The Shadow Walkers though, I did like that idea a lot because your scout units now have universal camouflage, and since the Mystics have kind of a special scout unit that's able to just hover over any terrain with a identical move speed, this gives your scouts an extra edge. And with a Wayfinder enchantment, it's pretty cool because your scouts are then from the start really fast. This is, I think, a really good trait if you already know, for whatever reason there is, that another Mystic ruler is playing against you, and you are already aware of the fact that there will be a competition against these astral echoes that only Mystic rulers can pick up. This gives you an edge in the race because your enemies cannot see your scouts and you can pick up that stuff faster. But here again, it is a pretty powerful stuff in my opinion to pick up. Now then, that summarizes all the things that I saw here in terms of synergy. I'm pretty sure I didn't catch everything. I feel really happy if you'd add in your ideas and strategies, and feel free to leave a thumbs up. A subscription would be deeply welcomed as well. And if this was your first video for this game from my side, there is a playlist link down there leading to all the other Age of Wonders 4 info videos that I made so far. A big thanks to the supporters of this channel. I deeply appreciate your help and your really amazing things that you do for me and the community, and therefore I'd be really happy if you'd give PayPal, Patreon, and Buy Me a Coffee a look. There's links down below, and whether you look at them or not, I thank you so much for watching this video up until this very point. This is a form of support I deeply appreciate as well. Have a wonderful day, and see you next time.